By 2009, the world had officially gotten online. 2009 was the year Google finally took the crown for the most used search engine. Yahoo, Microsoft, and Fox were in the top searches. Amazon was about to surpass eBay as the world's retail therapy king. And Pornhub had just started to eke out RedTube as the smut king of the internet. That last bit will be important in a moment. Our point is, the Wild West of the internet was settled by 2009. Google, Pornhub, and Amazon had settled onto their thrones. And yet, rapper and shock artist Eminem had never heard of internet porn whatsoever. Joe and I want to read to you a snippet of the interview by Complex, who spilled the beans about internet porn. Ironically, while Eminem was showing off his massive collection of porn DVDs. Just a quick warning. I'll be reading the interview as it was posted to Reddit and Complex. Swear words and all. Joe will take the role as the interviewer for this part.
Can you still shock people when there are no taboos left?
I don't think I'll ever run out of ideas on how to shock. And if I do, I'll probably just stop. But I definitely know what you mean. Kids nowadays are so used to seeing crazy shit. There's so much crazy weird shit on the internet. It's certainly getting harder to shock people.
Speaking of which, you've always said you don't use computers or the internet. Is that really still the case in 2009?
Yeah, I don't even know how to turn a computer on. And it's probably better that way. I look at stuff, but as far as actually sitting there and knowing how to work it and knowing what sites to go on.
So you're saying you still buy porn on DVD then? There's a lot of free porn on the internet, I think, is what Noah's trying to tell you.
Oh, there is? Maybe I should go to the internet.
There's something called Spankwire.
What? Spankwire?
Imagine a YouTube of pornography.
Really? I know what I'm doing for the rest of the day when this shit's over. You can look up anything?
Yep.
Nostril fucking?
Maybe so. Like any genre or actress?
I have to go back and look at my pornos because there's a couple chicks that really...
Changed your life?
Yeah.
Wow, Complex just put Eminem onto streaming porn. I'd like to apologize to music fans around the world now.
If my album doesn't come out, it's Noah's fault. You're listening to The Re-Engineered You. This is a podcast about self-empowerment and all the myths, lies, and misconceptions we tell ourselves. Then, we use science and history to bust those myths and re-engineer a better you. I'm your host, Todd Laments, the extrovert.
And I'm the writer, researcher, and introvert, Joe Anthony, whose job it is to dig through the outer layer of no-duh on the internet and get to the facts.
Whether we look up to them because we want to emulate their success or because we love their work, America has a celebrity obsession. And the pool of people we consider celebrity grows bigger every day. Successful capitalists like Jeff Bezos and Mark Cuban are lumped in with the celebrities. Reality TV stars are given the celebrity treatment. And mega YouTube personalities are labeled as celebrity. They're entertainment, and they're our royalty. Our children listen to their TikTok rants on their phones. Our spouses read their tweets while they're on the toilet. And every election, we're exposed to their political opinions. Well, on today's episode, we want to ask the question, can our celebrity icons really love us back? Or does wealth, success, and the celebrity life insulate them to the point of being calloused? Joe and I want to explore this question by busting a few myths. Myths like, Myth 1. Does the good life, aka wealth insulation, alter our behavior as people? Does money make us calloused or cautious? And if we became celebrities overnight, would being surrounded by yes men change us? Myth 2. Celebrities are mega talented, right? So why shouldn't they insulate themselves? For that matter, what's wrong with us using one's influence to gain opportunities and autonomy? Myth 3. Okay, if wealth insulation is bad for you emotionally, what about the craft? Can getting everything you want stunt the creative process that much? We're going to get into the science of wealth and celebrity in a moment. But first, I want to share another prime example of insulation with Joe, one that went viral after it debuted on Ellen.
So we found out that Eminem doesn't really know about internet porn, and that's kind of a big one. Even if you're against internet porn, you at least know about it, right?
Yeah. Well, I got a better one than that.
Okay.
Bill Gates, the richest man in the world. He went on Ellen DeGeneres' talk show, and he played a game. And if he wins, the audience all gets a gift. So they're all cheering for him. And the game was Price is Right.
Okay. So he's guessing the prices of items?
Stuff that you get, basic stuff at a grocery store that every one of us probably listening to this show goes and buys.
Okay.
Right off, he said, I haven't been to the grocery store in a long time. Now, to me, a long time to him, it's probably 30 years, maybe
right.
more, maybe 40 years he hasn't been to the grocery store. So they're asking him how much things cost. And he started with rice-a-roni. The first thing he said, and all the audience, Joe's on the edge of their seat. They're excited. They want to win the gift. They're all kind of jacked up. Mm-hmm. He said rice-a-roni. And he said $5. And you could feel the whole crowd cringe because rice-a-roni cost $1. You can get it at the dollar store.
It's the cheapest box food there is, basically.
Yeah. And then the big one was the Tide Pockets, those really expensive laundry detergent.
Okay.
The most expensive one. You know, they cost more than cocaine, right?
Right.
He said $5. The crowd cringed again, and they said $20, you know?
Right.
At least.
So they know at this point they're not going to win.
Okay, now at this point, Ellen had given up because they know he's not going to get any of them right. He nailed dental floss. He knew that was $4.
Okay.
So he got one right. But at this point, they're going to lose their thing. He has to do 3 out of 5, right? Mm-hmm. So they started to help him. So they came up with these really cheap pizza rolls that, you buy for kids.
Okay, like Pizza Pockets or something.
Yeah, he thought those cost $20. And the crowd goes, no, they're like $7. They're all chanting it, right?
Right.
Yeah. So finally, they handed it over to the audience, and they won. And the crowd goes wild.
So something almost as ubiquitous as porn, which is food, and our millionaire celebrity didn't get that. Like, almost hadn't heard of what the pricing is for these things.
And he's the smartest guy in the world. You think he could kind of just figure it out, kind of guesstimate, but he has no points of reference. If he hasn't been in the grocery store in 40 years, he hasn't bought anything. This is what it means to me. People, the celebrities and the super rich, they never take the garbage out. They don't put gas in their car. They've never made a sandwich, Joe.
Right.
Everything is done for them. They don't worry about car payments or changing their cell phone bill to save $15.
I bet the person who shops for Bill Gates was yelling, was just frustrated at the edge of his seat.
I bet you're right. Have you ever noticed that middle class or upper middle class people, and I've done this myself, will talk about the super rich about how humble they are. Like, one of the ones that stands out to me is Warren Buffett lives in this small, modest house. Like, they're trying to make them more like us, but they live a very different life than us.
Right. I don't think Warren Buffett, despite living in a humble house, he's never had to worry about paying for his medication or anything.
Standing in line at the airport.
Right.
He just hops on the jet of whatever company he's buying.
Yeah, exactly. like Batman, he just buys the jet he stands on.
At what point do they start chewing your food for you and spitting it in like a mama bird,
Right. That's in first class. I don't know if you've seen people doing that in first class.
I'm always in coach, stuffed in there like an animal.
Right. Trump kind of has the same thing going for him. I've heard people talk about how it's more relatable that he eats McDonald's every day, and that's what he served when he had guests over at the White House. And it's always struck me as weird that we try to make millionaires and celebrities relatable, but I think they themselves are trying to make themselves attainable. Like they want to let everyone know that you can get there as long as you keep drudging.
Now I got to tell you the story. I got married and I had Joe was at my wedding, and we had just a low budget wedding, but we went out and we hired a very expensive photographer. And this guy was from LA. He used to have a big studio in LA, and COVID knocked him out of business. And he told me this story. His name was Phil, and he was phenomenal. And he made us look a lot prettier than we are, my wife and I. But he's telling me this story because he's worked with Brad Pitt, he's worked with Jennifer Aniston, he's worked with all these actors and actresses. And he says, this is what happens when they come in. You get a food list, and you have to go buy every single thing on that list. And it's like Eminem. It's random. It's all this weird stuff. They bring that out. They put it on this humongous table that one person could never eat in a lifetime. He said, this is the weird thing about it. The people that come in and do their hair, take their pictures, do their nails, bring clothes for them, they don't pay for a thing.
Wow. So they're getting all those services for free.
Because the people want to market themselves and say, oh, I work with Brad Pitt or I work with Jennifer Aniston. And he said that the thing about the food, he's never seen one person take a bite of food.
Wow.
He said Miley Cyrus comes in, they don't even look at it. It's just there in case.
Jeez. Okay. I am hoping that at least like the security guards and the janitors get to eat later.
That would be us. We'd be taking a to-go bucket.
Oh my God. Yeah, they used to have lawyers in our building do the same thing, and we turned into raccoons every time they cleared out. So,
so they just kind of peck at their food and say,
exactly. There's a buffet left over. Well, do you want to talk about how? Well, first, we don't want people to think we're making celebrities out to seem evil. And we don't want to seem like we're bashing on millionaires unnecessarily.
No, because we want to become one eventually.
Yeah, I'm actually on board with that, but I do want us to be self-aware enough to realize that it does change you. So do you want to talk a little bit about how wealth insulates us?
Please.
Excellent. We're going to harken back to an article that we talked about in our Anna Delvey and classism episode.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, I love that one. But in that episode, we talked about Why Rich People Are So Mean by Wired. And it was written by Christopher Ryan. And he talks about like basically how wealth insulation begins. He talks about drinking samosas in a cafe in India. And he was being stared at by starving children. And they're kind of like ganged up around him, waiting for him to leave his food on the table. And he talks about he realized that he could, with his plane ticket money and like with his pocket change, he could change their lives, like one or two of them. And if he really wanted to, he could basically open a school. I mean, if he took his wealth and applied it.
And save hundreds of kids from.
Right. But he came to a realization, and again, they talk about in this article that you kind of have to callous yourself when you hit a certain wealth bracket. That you have to be able to turn on blinders, because every time you see somebody who is needy, the game of being extremely wealthy is not getting rid of that money. So in that article, they talk about a University of Toronto study by Stephanie Coate. And she talks about why that callusing happens. So I'm just going to read a little bit of this. This is a direct quote, so go check out that article. It's fantastic. We've talked about it already on prior episodes. She says, "The rich are less generous when inequality is extreme. If the person who needs help doesn't seem too different from us, we'll help them out." And I hadn't really thought about this article too much until I saw Taylor Swift on Twitter. Did you hear about her giving out money?
I did not.
So Taylor Swift started giving out money to needy fans who were affected by COVID. And it looked like she was doing about $3,000 a pop. And it was, they would plead their case, and she would reach out to them and basically try to change their life for them. And we bring her up because we also want to show that celebrities aren't all the same. We're not going to label all of them as like the same sort of calloused ilk, but this to me, when I saw that online, it immediately brought me back to Christopher Ryan and his article talking about drinking samosas while staring at starving children. And it made me remember that the wealthy become calloused when they're surrounded by need. Again, we covered that in our last episode. But thinking about Taylor Swift giving out $3,000 to people who need it for COVID and relief, what's that do to us as America when all of the lower class is suffering from COVID, everyone's on unemployment, we have 30 to 40 million Americans who could be evicted during COVID? Does that turn us all into just us staring at celebrities while they're drinking samosas?
Well, what this means to me, though, but they are willing to help out their friend, loan them whatever they need to get back on their feet.
Right.
So it's not that they don't have it. It's not that they just have the button turned off. It's just who they'll give it to.
Yeah, that's a really good point, and that's exactly what the article, the Stephanie Coate article, was saying, is that we're more likely to lend to people who are closer to our economic wealth. We don't want to. We want to callous ourselves if we get extremely wealthy enough to where we don't give it away to all of the needy who are around us. So now we kind of want to talk about how celebrities get that wealth, or what that wealth comes from, what it looks like. We talked before this episode started, when I started writing it. You talked to me about the idea that they're getting their hair for free, and they're getting their nails done for free, and they're getting food brought out to them for free. And I kept that in the back of my mind. I was like, that is a great story. I love that Todd brought that up. And then I wanted to know how much free stuff they're getting. Like how much could they possibly be banking? So for this, I found a Vulture article, and oh my God, the free stuff they get. Like just the pure money in the pocket that they get for being themselves. So you want to talk about how wealth calluses you. Imagine every year you get $100,000 in free goods for doing nothing.
For showing up to a party?
Yes, for just being a face. So I'm going to run through the highlights of what they get. The number one freebie is apparel. So right off the bat, just imagine not having to buy clothes anymore. We're looking at Calvin Klein, Burberry, John Varvatos. There is an exception. There's one company, Louis Vuitton, who will not give out gifts or discounts ever.
But the point is, this is not stuff from Ross or Marshalls. This is
exactly. It is
designer,
extremely high-end designer
very
stuff.
expensive clothes.
And they're doing it because they want their product to be seen on a celebrity. But what they get is they get calloused. Then we get to consumer electronics, because who doesn't want to have Miley Cyrus holding our new iPhone or whatever they're giving out? Laptops, flat screens, phones. Celebrities can afford to buy a new car every season, as this article points out, but they're getting stuff from General Motors and Audi. So like cars will literally show up and just be parked outside a celebrity's house. This article points out that anytime a celebrity has a baby, the baby is targeted. They go after her with diapers and strollers.
Well, I was just watching this documentary about an NFL football player, and he just moved to L.A., and he went house shopping. And the realtors brought in a designer for a house that he hasn't even bought just to look at. They found out what kind of furniture he likes, what different color patterns he likes. They put posters of his kids and him playing football in expensive frames all over the house.
Just
for him to look at it.
Wow.
Now, another one that popped up to me is, I'm a big sports fan, and I didn't know this, but baseball players in the major league, they have equipment people that come out and they go over their bats and their gloves. Well, these pitchers will use a glove, a certain kind of glove. Mm-hmm. They get $30,000 a year to wear that.
Wow.
They already need that, Joe. They need a glove.
Right.
And the same thing with bats. Even though you can't even tell what bat or what glove they're using, they still get money for that. Cash.
Jeez. I know that we are sort of, it also sounds like we're bagging on people who are extremely talented. These people are talented. They do deserve some money and to be compensated for their time and efforts. We're just saying that if everything gets handed to you before you even start having to buy, like before you even get a paycheck for your actual job, then you can't help but possibly be calloused. That if wealth difference calluses us, well, then we're starting people out wealthy. It also mentioned the Vulture article that Tom Cruise threw a 17th birthday party for his son, and the Staples Center basically sponsored it and showered him with gifts and cars. And celebrities get free vacation resorts and round trip tickets and all kinds of things. So just a reminder, the gifts that a big name celebrity gets is about $100,000 on average in free goods per year. So if you're ever wondering if this affects their decision making, Think about that Wired article and insulation. And the takeaway from me, I think, is we literally listen to these people to influence our moral decisions. Celebrities kind of view it as a responsibility, quote unquote, to use their platform to message at us. But they haven't been us class-wise in a long time. Like, I guarantee Kim Kardashian has never thought about skipping meds because she ran short on cash and her coverage was cut.
Okay, let's talk about another billionaire.
Please.
Mark Zuckerberg. Now, he bought a house in Palo Alto, right by his work.
Okay.
He paid about $7 million for it. And in that area, it's kind of average square footage. There's no frills. Now, remember, this guy has $71 billion. Now, anyone that knows the Northern California house market, $7 million is not an expensive house. Believe it or not.
So he's almost common man house, almost?
Yes, it's 5 bedrooms, 5 bath, but it's very, very modest. Okay. So this is kind of like the Warren Buffett thing. We can relate to this. This guy's not going to have this awesome $200 million house, which he can afford, no problem.
Right.
But then he started buying 4 houses that surrounded his Palo Alto residence.
So instead of the mansion, he went with the humble house and then everyone else's humble house around him.
Yeah, and then he leased them back to their former owners. I thought that was very weird.
Okay.
Then he made plans to demolish and rebuild them. So he bought these perfectly good $7 million. I'm guessing in the neighborhood they're probably $7 million a piece, right?
Mm-hmm.
He spent $43 million on these to have them destroyed and rebuilt.
Wow.
To keep his neighbors away, like a moat, Joe.
He's literally insulated himself with houses, also known as pulling a monopoly. When you take all the little houses you bought and you put one big hotel on.
I think if you're a billionaire, you look at millionaires like, man, you're lazy.
Right. Get in the game, buddy. So do you want to talk about wealth insulation and what it takes to get rich in the first place?
Yes, that's what we want, right?
Yes, absolutely. You mean you and me sitting in this room?
We're middle class. We're trying to get to upper middle. I say it almost every show.
Right. So we want to, hopefully, Todd and I want to get wealthy, but not get insulated and cut ourselves off. So that's why we look at the science. Why do people become rich in the first place? We had an episode recently about creative competition. And to start that insulation process, to start building wealth, we kind of want to have more money than our neighbor. In that last episode, I asked Todd if there's a hypothetical they had in a study where it was, if you made $50,000 and all of your neighbors made $25,000, would you be happier in that scenario where you're the big fish, rather than everyone makes more except you make less than your neighbors? I think in that hypothetical, it was you make 50, everyone else makes 100. So you actually have, the same amount or more. It's just that you're technically the smaller fish.
You feel superior, though, if you have so if you had to pick the two, the majority of people are going to pick.
The majority of people picked the less money, but being superior to their neighbors. This was upheld in 1947 by Richard Easterlin. He was an economist, and this is called the Easterlin paradox. He found out that country citizens do not become happier as the country becomes richer. When everyone gets richer, their happiness basically stays the same. It's a flat level line. And this was supported by a British study where they took 12,000 British citizens, and they basically checked for the same thing: their wealth, how much they had gained across the board, and if they were happier. Would it surprise you to know that wealth doesn't make everyone happier if they all go up simultaneously?
I believe that.
We want to income only increases satisfaction when it raises higher than peers of the same or similar age and education level and region. So we want
to
the
be the richest
house.
of your coworkers.
Right.
If you're a radiologist, you want to be the best radiologist on the West Coast.
Right. I another study unrelated to this jokingly referred to it as the sister's husband syndrome, where you want to make more money than an in-law just to impress them.
You drive your car, park it next to their cheap car,
Right?
at Christmas.
Merry Christmas, jerks! Guess how much this Lamborghini makes?
You buy their kids nicer gifts than they can afford.
Right.
And just enjoy it, just for the love, just for the sport of it.
Right. Here's your game console. So. We also talked in another study about the Monopoly game. That's one of my favorite studies to bring up. In that one, when the wealthy, they wanted to study human interaction and find out if wealth makes people change their own narrative, like if they have to justify it in their own mind. This was a study by Kiltner and Piff. And the way they tweaked this game is they rigged it so that one player had huge advantages over everybody from the start. They ran it with hundreds of pairs of subjects, all of whom were brought to the lab, and they were told to play. And they would assign a rich player, and they would assign poor players. The rich players start out with more money. They rolled more dice. They had more turns. Generally, they had all the advantages.
So you have no chance to beat them.
You have no chance to beat them. If you played a game like that, where you start with more than I do and you get more than I do throughout the game, how would you say about it? Like if somebody asked, how'd you win? What would you say?
I'll say I had more opportunities than them. They didn't have a chance.
That would be the fair assessment. But what they found out is after people playing for more than 15 minutes were asked that, the rich players oftentimes talked about their own skill.
Oh, you're kidding me.
Not kidding at all.
Even though they get more rolls.
Right. They had to create sort of a narrative that allowed them to win and feel good about winning.
And it's just like that in life.
Another fun part of the study is they ate more pretzels. So they had free snacks on the table, and the richer players felt entitled to eat more while they were playing too.
Free food is our greatest pleasure, right?
I think so, yeah.
Free food just tastes better.
If you gave me free turpentine, I'd drink it. Like if it's free, it's better.
And they could at least break off a piece of pretzel and give it to the poor folks, but they
Right.
won't. They're calloused.
You can have my pretzel crumbs. So now we ask sort of the related question, which is how many celebrities started the Monopoly game with an advantage, so to speak? We all know of child celebrities who come from famous parents, and it's true that many actors and singers do work their butts off. They have to.
Right. They waited tables, and there is that percentage of them.
There is, totally. And we kind of hold up that anecdote as the standard, but that's not really the standard. Their level of work and talent probably justifies the wealth they've accumulated, but it doesn't stop them from becoming insulated. This is why Ellen can justify treating her staff like garbage, because she's earned it. She believes she's earned the ability to do that to the people around her.
So even though they were like us and had tough times, they think they deserve every cent they got. And they outworked everybody. They're better than everybody. That's why they're where they are.
Yep. So when this podcast blows up and we both get rich, I'm treating everybody like Ellen's staff. I'm going to be
I'm going to have a chinchilla jacket. I'm going to be very aloof. You won't even be able to talk to me.
I'll hold up a manila folder whenever I pass by my neighbors. That's how I'll deal with them.
I want to talk about Johnny Depp. And he's really surrounded by a lot of yes men.
Is that a celebrity? I'm kidding. I know who Johnny Depp is.
He's been famous for 35 years. Think about that. I think about that like Robin Williams. They've been famous for a lifetime.
Right.
For more adult lifetime than I've been around. Now, his films over the years have grossed over $8 billion, not million, $billion. But he doesn't make much money on the movies. The studio makes $4 for every dollar they pay him.
Okay.
And the studio has huge expenses. That's not profit. And I'll give you an example on the Lone Ranger that he was in. The budget was $215 million. And it earned just $260 million. But they had another $80 million on advertising. So they were in the hole about $15 to $20 million. Just lost money.
And it was just gambling on Depp?
Exactly. They paid the lion's share to him.
Wow.
Now, I saw an interesting thing in this about how there's not equality for men and women, actors and actresses. Actresses don't have as long careers as men. As the men just keep going and making these huge things, women, they get a certain age, they stop even getting any kind of gigs.
Okay. Or they get pigeonholed into being mothers in movies and things like that.
Exactly. Different roles.
Right.
More supporting cats, not the lead ones. The lead ones go to the younger people.
Of course.
Forbes had a very interesting article about who the most overpaid actors were. And Depp was second behind Adam Sandler. So Depp, like I said before, for every $4 he was paid $1. Sandler was $3 for every $1 he was paid.
So every time Sandler gets $1, the studio only gets $3.
Yeah, with monster expenses.
That is so wild.
Now, it's estimated in his whole career, Johnny Depp has made, he's netted about $3 billion on his film. So he has been profitable in the early days. You know, the Pirates of the Caribbean was a huge monetary hit.
Oh, yeah.
He has made, in personal income, it's estimated because all the extra stuff they get, right? $650 million.
So he totally qualifies as super wealthy, right?
Yeah, absolutely. The multi-residences all over the world. He even bought his own island.
Wow.
Now, he's almost flat broke. He's behind on everything. And he was in a lawsuit, and it came out that he probably spends, he's so compulsive on his spending, he spends $2 million a month on himself.
What? How? Okay, so if you had to, that's Brewster's Millions. How would you spend $2 million a month if it was you?
Yeah, there was a joke about it that said, wine is not an investment if you drink it as soon as you buy it.
That's my kind of investment, wine and tigers.
You take an expensive wine to a party and drink the whole thing.
Right.
It's been reported that Depp's drug use and his alcohol use is really destroying him as a person.
Okay.
And I thought this was a weird thing. His closest friend, someone he trusts the most, is a lawyer named Waldman. And he met him, Joe, only 2 years ago.
So his confidant, like he's known him less time than I've known new coworkers, basically.
Yeah, and he's been in the movie business for years. He started 21 Jump Street, which was a TV show that I used to watch. And I'm 45 years old. I used to watch that in middle school. So that...
And his best friend is his lawyer.
Yeah, that he met 2 years ago. Not somebody, a childhood friend who's always been with him or a family member.
Wow.
I have an interesting fact about him that most people don't know. Johnny Depp's stepdad was the singer, the rock star, Robert Palmer. I don't know if you know him, but he's the one that sings Addicted to Love.
Oh, okay.
That was his stepdad. And Johnny Depp's always said what a huge influence he was on him. So he had a famous rock star stepdad who died of a heart attack from hard partying too.
Okay. So what's our lesson with like creativity and money mixing?
Well, there's a quote, and this kind of sums it up, and it's by famous music producer Quincy Jones. Now, Quincy Jones was talking about creativity. And this is the quote. When you chase music for money, God walks out of the room.
I like that. And I think it carries across to creativity in general. So do you want to talk about whether or not money kills creativity?
Absolutely.
Okay. So not to beat up on Johnny Depp too much, but you said his stepdad was Robert Palmer. It's important to note that if you have a wealthy parent or you have a good family income, you're more likely to have creative people. And that look that you gave me, the shocked, that's exactly how I felt reading this article. I wanted to go out and prove that like money kills your creativity. What it actually does is it sets you up to have creative children. Okay, so this comes from a Smithsonian article, and there's an economist in this article, Carol Jan Barowicki, an economist at the University of New Southern Denmark. And during one of her studies, she talked about how they went through and they looked at the incomes of houses. And they found that if a house has an income of $100,000, they are twice as likely to produce a musician, artist, or actor than a house with an income of $50,000. So
I totally get that. Like, because when you don't have expendable income, the parents can't put you in piano lessons and drama class and drive you all over.
right, you get the lessons, but you also don't risk as much if you fail as an artist. Everyone knows the difficulty of running out to Hollywood and trying your dreams, right?
Yeah, and poor kids go to work when they're 14. They go get jobs. They go get paper routes. They work at fast food places. Rich kids have more time.
Exactly. So she started going through higher incomes. The stakes get even higher. With members of the first household, the $100,000 house, they were nearly 10 times as likely than 50,000 to choose a creative profession. Their children were. Overall, Borowicki thinks that every additional $10,000 in total income pre-tax raises a child's likeliness that they'll choose an artistic field by about 2%. So we should go back, if possible, and look at Depp's father and see what their household was bringing in.
So what you're telling me is an actor, actress, a musician who moves to, let's say, Hollywood, right, to make it rich, and they say, oh, I lived in this apartment. What they're not telling you is that their parents paid for that apartment.
Right. Yeah, they all have the same sort of I risked it all and I went after my dream story. What they don't say is when they failed, they could move back to their parents' place and their income was high enough to support them again.
The stakes weren't that high, and they had way more chips on the poker table.
Right, exactly.
Than a normal person.
Yes. I tried my darndest to find a study that either proved or disproved that too much money ruins a creative career or that it kills creativity. The best I could get was psychology articles about resource hoarding and the mindset of resource hoarding. Basically, deprivation early in life or any kind of deprivation of certain things can make you want to hoard resources. And this kind of explains why Nic Cage bought a $150 million dinosaur skull, or why Barbra Streisand built a shopping mall in her basement. Have you ever seen Streisand shopping mall? Okay, hold on. I'm gonna encourage the listeners, go on Google image search and look up Barbra Streisand's mall. It's in her basement. And it has shops and windows. It's like a doll shop and a clothing store. They're literal stores where she can go in, shop, and then take what she wants back upstairs because it's in her basement.
I wonder if they like ring her up too, just for like playing house, you know?
Imagine the misery of being the servant who has to ring up a Barbra Streisand in her own house with her own store-bought goods.
And if it doesn't look good on her, she throws it at you.
Right.
It's your fault.
She throws a tantrum and it's her store.
If the stock isn't exactly what she likes.
Right. The best I can do anecdotally, because I could not find a study about this, I know that I've talked to and listened to creative writers, and they talk about how if you write enough and you make enough money, you become less of a writer and you become more of an intellectual property manager. You are just using your own stories, the old ones you've written, and you're just licensing them and reselling them and changing them. And I seriously have come to believe by studying for this episode, that's kind of what people become when they're like famous actors and when they're celebrities. They're not so much doing it for the craft at a certain point. They're not being creative because they want to make a good movie. They're just going out and collecting their $100,000 in free stuff every year. And then the brain is built to be efficient. And so if they know that if they show up at a party or something and they'll get paid for that, why go make a movie? Because that's hard. Like why not just reach for the money?
It would seem like if you were an artist and at your core and you had enough money that you didn't have to worry about money anymore, you would look for the roles that really challenge you, the special kind of movies, right?
I believe there are actors that do that. I totally do.
But they're not in the majority, though.
I don't think they're in the majority. I think creative people start creative, and it makes them money, and then they become more efficient money makers instead. I think insulation allows them to do that because nobody's there to tell them, please go be creative again.
And it's not just that. Everything they do, Joe, by their yes people around them, they're being told that they're great, and the movie was wonderful. People just don't get it.
Exactly. So
and they want to believe that.
Yeah. So they collect their money and they have people telling them they're awesome. Speaking of people telling them they're awesome, do we want to get back to Eminem and talk about has this insulation made him better at rapping?
Well, this is interesting. Now, both Joe and I, I'm going to speak for you because you've quoted, we work a lot on structure and stuff, and Eminem, we're both fans of his, right?
Yeah.
For me, he's probably the best rapper that ever lived.
I have gone and looked at breakdowns of his lyricism and how he works with different types of rhyme. It's even if you don't like his music, it's very impressive what he can do with language.
And his speed. Mm-hmm. And I always think about my favorite thing of Eminem is I want you to watch it on YouTube sometime. Drake is doing a concert in Detroit. And it's fun. Everyone's dancing and everything. Well, of course, then Eminem was a surprise guest, and he pops up on stage dancing. The place almost blew the roof off. You just see all these people get emotional and just jump. I mean, they were already dancing, but they danced harder.
Right. It's like a rowdy soccer game.
Everyone just screamed. Now, you're talking a lot about people's primes, and Eminem still uses a lot of homophobic slurs. And times have changed since his early stuff.
Okay, so like his porn, not knowing about porn, he also doesn't know that we don't use homophobic slurs anymore.
Mm-hmm. And his record sales have really, really dipped. I'm just going to read a few of them here.
Sure.
These are the newest ones. 2007 Revival. Now, he used to sell over 1 million, easy platinum. He only sold 602,000. And then there was Kamikaze in 2018, and that only sold 633K.
Okay.
Now, that's a lot for a lot of other artists, but not for him. Now, the last one, Music to be Murdered By. Now, it came out in 2020. Even less, only 415,000.
So that's 2/3 of what he used to get.
Yeah. And he's 45 years old now, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's getting up there. But again, it's not uncommon for him to say really inappropriate things. Besides nostril fucking, he still uses the word faggot, which is offensive to me and to pretty much everybody now, right?
Yeah, I think the internet has basically all agreed that's not good.
Now, on his newest one, a couple years ago, Kamikaze, he's not just talking about homophobic things. He's also talking about stalking women and domestic violence. And he's talking about those things like, I wouldn't say kind of glorifying them, I guess is the best way to put it.
Right.
Now, I don't know Eminem, but I don't believe he's homophobic. I don't believe that he abuses women. I think he's just so insulated with producers and people that tell him, executives of the music company. They're trying to get him back to what sold.
Right.
So they're telling him, you have to do this. Why else would he do that?
Yeah. Committing career suicide, except for people are telling you it's good, go for it.
Yeah, trying to get that old sound back and your
Right.
glory days back. Wealth can callous you and make you less generous. Wealth can also change your personal narrative. You start justifying your good fortune to yourself. So, imagine that as a celebrity, and then add in all the free stuff you've ever wanted given to you, just for being yourself. Wealth doesn't make us happier, unless it's by comparison to our neighbors. And once you're wealthy, you're more apt to blame your own skill instead of luck. And becoming a celebrity definitely requires luck as well as talent. Unless you're a reality TV star, then it's all luck. How could celebrities not consider themselves superhuman to justify the little riches that are thrown at their feet, like offerings to a god? So, it's not money alone that insulates celebrities, nor is it physical isolation, being taken from cramped apartments where they have to see their neighbors every day to mansions on the hill. Instead, it may be a joining of forces, wealth callousing, isolation from everyone except yes men, and the lazy efficiency of the human mind, which will reach for a reward if it doesn't have to be creative anymore. So that's our lesson for today. As creative people, we need to keep interacting with the public. We need to practice self-awareness, and we need creative struggle. Yet the reward for becoming a celebrity is each of those things gets stripped away, replaced by expensive wines and free designer jackets. Why are we so shocked when Bill Gates doesn't know the price of pizza pockets? Or when Eminem has never heard of internet porn? Maybe, just maybe, we shouldn't be listening to insulated celebrities whenever we vote on healthcare policies or presidents. You've been listening to The Re-Engineered You. Thank you so much for listening to the show. You mean the world to us. We have a new episode every week.
Connect with us at www.re-engineeredyou.com, where we have research links, show notes, and blog articles for each of our episodes. We also appreciate feedback, and we love spirited debates.
We're not experts in anything, but we've got an opinion on everything.